chance to play with some incredible people in the Android Netrunner, rest in peace, and Magic the Gathering communities. But it's time to clean off the rose-tinted glasses and use what I've learned from the other games to dive into competitive YuGiOh. This week was the store's first event in the Back to Duel League, and as I expected, it was a bit more of a competitive environment than normal, and it even attracted some players from further afield. The weekend prior to the event was super hectic for me, so my plans to look into playtesting fell through, and we'll be looking at that next week instead. But for now, let's just get straight into our rounds. Round 1, we ended up getting the bye. Partially unfortunate, but it gave me the opportunity to sit down and do some test hands to warm myself up a bit. I left my deck in the same build as the previous week as I basically hadn't touched it since then, so I focused on going second hands. So we end up getting a free win to start off the league, which means we're going into the top half of the seeding for round 2 for the first time. Round 2, we get paired up against one of the new players to this locals and what I believe to be full-powered Dragon Link, the current meta favourite deck. We win the die roll and blind second and draw into one of the prettiest hands I've ever seen. 2 Dark Rulers, a Mask Change, Malicious, and a Cyclone. Our opponent builds a board of Heavenly Spheres, Striker, Pisty, Savage with 2 negates, and a face-down Dragon Maid Tidying. We then top deck our Ash, which is really unfortunate timing, but we start by cycloning the Tidying before T-setting the Ash and a Dark Ruler. This causes our opponent to bounce the Dark Ruler in our end step with their spheres, which at least uses that up. Our goal here is to just see if we can live to see one more card before scooping it up. We fortunately succeed in this endeavour. Our opponent summons a Levianeer and brings us down to 1500 before building a free negate Appaloosa and a second spheres and passing back. We top deck a Pharos and have a decision to make. We can Dark Ruler and attempt to wipe out their board, or we can hide our deck by conceding and going to game 2. With 2 cards in our opponent's hands and spheres on the board which can dodge Dark Ruler by resolving in the graveyard, the chance of building a board capable of wiping out theirs is quite low, but we take on the challenge. We start off our combo, and as we go to summon Vion with Increase, we get hit by the Ash. That basically grinds this plan to a halt as we're down a Body, a Foolish, and a Poly. At this point, we've shown we're on heroes, so if we continue by using Malicious in our grave to summon another Malicious from deck, upon resolution, Malicious gets bounced to hand by Spheres. In response to the search effect, I Mask Change Increase into Dark Law as I'm expecting my opponent to extra deck lock us with Goliath. This ends up being a good play as our opponent then has to play around the second effect of Dark Law and ends up going for a mere safer. We have no more ways to extend though, so we go to combat and knock out the safer as the Appaloosa can't do anything now it has no counters after being hit by Dark Ruler, and we can't get over the Savage. Since we're out of plays, we pass to our opponent who brings out the Levianeer that they added to their hand on their last turn. Levianeer pops Dark Law and they swing for game. Game 2, we opt to go second again. Our opponent builds a similar board with Pisty, LP, Spheres, Savage, and a set Tidying. Our hand is a bit rough, but it's got more play than the first game. We normal summon Stratos who eats the Savage negate and follow up with Fusion Destiny for Dangerous because we desperately need to use Shadow Mist and Malicious to extend. I don't end up using the effect of Shadow Mist here though. I would have really benefited from grabbing a Pharos to extend further, but I seem to have been distracted while summoning Dangerous and forgot to activate Shadow Mist's effect. There is basically no reason to hold off of using the effect here because I have no way to special summon the Pharos later. We continue by using the Malicious in our grave to summon another and link that with Stratos to summon a Cross Crusader, who revives the Malicious. Spheres bounces our Cross Crusader and we're kind of stuck. If we had added a Pharos to hand earlier, we could have built up to a Plasma as our remaining hand was Dynatag and Plasma, and our opponent seemed out of resources to stop us getting there. Plasma would have stolen Savage and shut down the rest of his board, likely securing the game as 4900 is a lot to get over without monster effects. Instead, we knock out LP with Dangerous and pass to get OTK'd. This round was rough, but I got some time to talk to my opponent after the game, who gave me some advice, notably pointing out that Forbidden Droplet would be a considerable upgrade to Dark Ruler, but as that second game showed, right now I'm still in a position where I'll gain a lot more from playing my cards correctly than upgrading my staples. Droplets are currently among the cards outside of my budget at £100 a copy, and while from a competitive standpoint they would be a great upgrade to the deck as they don't prevent us from OTKing like Dark Ruler does, keeping your spending within your means is important when playing TCGs as they can easily spiral out of control. That said, we learned a lot from our mistake this game, but once again it's Shadow Mist that I failed to use correctly. This is giving us a focus point for improvement, identifying what effect of Shadow Mist we should be using prior to actually sending it to the graveyard. On to round 3, and we're facing off against someone I've seen at locals before but not had a chance to play against before. And today they're playing zombies. We win the die roll and blind second. Our opponent opens with Zombie World and a Chupacabra, where we hit Balladrock with the discard. Then they go on to use Bigfoot, which we hit, so no summon there. But at this point, we realized that they forgot to draw from the Chupacabra, which impacted the Bigfoot effect. We called the judge, who rules to draw the card and continue play as the deck hasn't been shuffled, but the result of the Bigfoot was to stay the same. They continue by summoning a Glow-Up Bloom and linking into Halki Fibrax, who summons another Glow-Up from deck, after the first summons Balladrock from the deck due to Zombie World being on the field. They then link the Balladrock and Hulk into a Vampire Sucker and pass turn. We open up by cycloning the Zombie World and summoning Stratos, who grabs a Shadow Mist. We summon Faris from hand using the Shadow Mist, without using Shadow Mist's effect again. I have no idea how I'm planning to summon Shadow Mist later, and we already have a Mask Change in hand, so another case of the same misplay. The Faris and Stratos end up getting us to a board of Cross Crusader, Dark Law, Absolute Zero, and Sunrise, and we managed to misplay twice more during the battle phase. I forgot about Sunrise buffing all my monsters by 200 attack per attribute, and forgot to use Sunrise's second effect to blow up the Bloom without wasting an attack on it. These misplays turn an OTK into my opponent living on 2200. We go back and forth a few turns, remembering Sunrise's on-attack effect and using it and Dark Ruler to banish all of his Balladrocks and Zombie Worlds with Dark Law. Our opponent ends up scooping as they have now lost their boss monsters, but this game went way longer than it needed to. Game 2 goes a similar way, with our opponent opening with a Zombie World, Jackalope and Bloom into an end board of Avenged Savior and said Zombie World. We once again cyclone the Zombie World and use a Hero Lives to summon Stratos from deck, who searches Faris, who we summon discarding an increase. We end up getting Devion, who bins a Shadow Mist, who then adds an Honest Neos to hand. This time this was probably a misplay since we hadn't used our normal summon, so could use Cross Crusader to search for Liquid Soldier to special summon the Shadow Mist. I then misplay again by linking into Cross Crusader before putting a Destiny Hero in the grave, and from here we use Fusion Destiny to bring out our Dystopia by putting said Destiny Heroes in our grave, but I forget to use Dystopia's effect to burn our opponent. We use Malicious to summon another from deck and link into Dread Decimator. Dystopia uses its effect to pop our opponent's Savior, and our buffed board gets in for 8300 damage per game. How on earth I made that many misplays and the deck still OTK'd is beyond me. This deck is significantly better than I'm showing it to be even without the evil heroes, but it's clear that I need more practice with it. And our final round was against another one of the new players to this locals, and they were on what I believe to be full power dinos. I unfortunately botched the recording, so rather than gameplay, I'll just quickly summarize these games. First game, we lost the die roll and were made to go first. We opened with Dark Law by using a Mask Change and Shadow Mist from our hand, and I went for a greedy line by adding Faris to hand to try and set up an OTK for the following turn, but Dark Law ends up getting hit by Pankatops, and our opponent built a board with Dolker and UCT that I just couldn't break through. In our second game, we opted to go second and have a reasonable hand off of the back of a Hero Lives. Unfortunately, our opponent used Lost World to give us an egg token, and even the Dark Hole I drew for turn didn't unbrick us. Our dinos are really good at getting value from being destroyed, and the egg got protected by Lost World. Our opponent sealed the deal by using the Artifact Trap to special summon Artifact Scythe from deck, which locked us out of our extra deck, and we just get flattened the next turn. It was a quick final round, and without the recording to go over, I'm not 100% sure if it was poor play or bad hands that led us to not being able to out dinos, but we were able to get through Dragoon Dino a few weeks ago just fine, so whatever it was the case, we know this deck can beat dinos. Concluding the event, we went 2-2, which is a better record than my play deserves, but will take the lessons from said play to improve for next week. That said, all of our opponents did quite well, so despite having a bye, we ended up placing at the top of the 2-2s, putting us at 6th place. This was definitely a good learning experience, playing against a couple full-powered meta decks in Dragon Links and Dinos, and it was clear that the people playing those decks were very competent at the game. I already called out a bunch of my misplays from the matches, so I'm not going to keep going over those here. Instead, I want to talk about the two ways this deck can be played. It has both a going first and going second play pattern that differ quite a bit, with the going first plan relying on floodgates like Dark Lore and Plasma to heavily limit the boards our opponents can build, and the going second plan relying on using cards like Dread Decimator and Sunrise in order to beef up our heroes for an OTK. So far, I've only really focused on the going second plan, and a running theme is that when I go first, I don't really know what board I want to end on and how I'm going to get there. Despite this being primarily a going second deck and seemingly a majority of the meta decks want to go first, I do really badly need to learn how to play first correctly. I got a chance to talk to someone who seemed heavily into the competitive side of the game during the event, and they offered me some advice around leaning on Dark Lore a bit more, specifically going first against their deck, which is quite susceptible to both of its effects. This would also allow me to side out my Dark Rulers for Drolls in the side, which also would hit their deck quite hard. I took a bit of time to reflect on their advice, and ultimately I agree with it. But also something another opponent said to me when I asked to go second after they knew I was on Heroes was big surprise there. It was just a jokey comment, and there was nothing serious behind it, but it did give something away about Heroes being known for being a go second OTK deck, and the obvious choice when I get to choose first or second is that I'll go second. So if I can go first instead, it means my opponent may side expecting to go first and therefore not have their going second cards. Another thing is I want to make a change to the deck and side deck. Ultimately, the side deck was built based on deck profiles on YouTube from old formats. So now that the format's settled, it seems like a really good time to rebuild it. And in doing so, I need to make a decision on a few cards. The first is getting Cosmic Cyclone out of my main deck. It's a dead card against a bunch of matchups, and the other decision being Dark Ruler No More versus Infinite Impermanence. There's been quite a few times that I've had to use Dark Ruler to out a single monster like Baladrock or Dragoon, and if I had Imperm instead, then I would be able to OTK while disabling their biggest threat instead of having to make the choice. So I'm going to try and get hold of 3 Impermanence for next week. I already own 2 from a dual power box, so I just need a third. Imperm can be found in Duel Overload, a set I want to open anyway, so I'm going against my better judgment of buying singles to try and pull the third. Okay, so here we have 3 boxes of Duel Overload. Now, I assumed buying this, it's 90 Ultras, probably a good chance of pulling a 1 in 100 card. There's 100 cards in the set, 90 cards here, pretty good chance of pulling Impermanence, right? Well, after watching some unboxings from other YouTubers and noticing some discussions on Reddit, it seems like there's a little bit of what's called short printing potentially with this set. No idea if anything like that's going on, but there's so much good stuff in this set that it probably doesn't matter. Basically, as long as I see an Impermanence and just a bunch of cards, I'm really happy because there's a load of cards in here that can build out a bunch of the other decks I just have sitting in that box. There's a bunch of cards in here that are great trade fodder, a bunch of staples that if we build certain decks we're going to need, like Hauki Fibrex, Verte Anaconda, just stuff like that. I've even seen hero decks running Verte Anaconda, and I'm not sure I would do it because Faris immediately locks you out of that, and so does Fusion Destiny, so it seems kind of niche. And sure, we have that flex slot of currently Escuridao in our extra deck that's subbing in for the Malicious Bane. We could put Verte Anaconda in, but I'm not sure if I'm going to actually put Verte Anaconda in my deck if I do pull it. For now, we're just going to see what we pull. Fingers crossed for that 1 Impermanence, but it's not the end of the world if we don't see it, because we could just pick one up anyway and just fill out our trade binder. So let's get to actually opening some of this. Okay, so box number 1. Now, normally I'd just grab the packs out of these and carry on, but since there's the oversized card at the back, I'm gonna actually show pulling that. Our first one is a Blue Eyes White Dragon. Now, I can't remember if these are just meant to be display pieces or if you're actually supposed to be able to color them in as a little project, but yeah, I think this is, I can't remember if this is just like some alternate art that already exists or if it's some art that doesn't yet exist, but that is pretty cool regardless. So, moving on, only thing we're really looking for, like that we actually need is impermanence, and everything else is basically just a plus. So, let's get straight into it. Sky Striker Ace Zeke, Alien Shock Trooper M-Frame, Dark Anthelian Dragon, Raid Raptor Wisetrix, and Saravis the Ancient and Ascended. So I've, based on the front of the box, there's going to be a load of link stuff in here, which is going to really fill out that section of our binder. Okay, moving on, we have Ancient Gear Ballista, Synchro Transcend, The Last Warrior from Another Planet, we have Cubic Ascension, and Kingyo Sukui. We have a Tenyi Spirit Sahasrara, that's a tongue twister. We have a What Giraffe, a Dangerous Fright for Nightmare, a White Mare, and a Deck Lockdown. So far, actually after the first pack, the amount of links kind of dropped a bit. I was expecting a lot of the packs to be like that first pack, having like 2 or 3 links in, but it seems it was just a 1 pack thing. We have a Mecha Phantom Beast Auroradon, which is a name I've heard quite a bit, so maybe something we'll be using in another deck. Reptilian Echidna, Magic Formula, another more Dark Magician support, of course. Speedroid Hexasaucer, and Paleozoic Dynamiscus. So this is a card that I've seen go in quite a few budget builds of Trap Shadow. So if we end up building Shadows after our Hero League, then that'll be very useful for that. Of course, it means if I want to go up to 3 of them, I now need to buy 3 of the same rarity. Well, 2, I guess. Rosebell of Revelation. Number 27, Dreadnought Dreadnoid. Double Evolution Pill, big for our dinos. Cubic Dharma. And Enma's Judgment. Ooh, a hero card. Extra Hero Infernal Devicer. Okay, this is definitely... Actually, is it? Because cards that are... A lot of the Destiny Hero fusions don't list any specific Destiny Heroes. I don't actually know how that works. Like, if it says 2 Destiny Heroes, can you just add 2 Destiny Heroes with this? Because if so, this is actually a great card, but if not, then not sure. But yeah, seems like a really good card, if that's how it works. Just maybe not as good as Wonder Driver. We then have Hollow Giants. Chaos Goddess, that's a really pretty card. It's well, definitely a Chaos card, needs light and dark monsters. Protector Orb of Destruction Swordsman. Super Vehicoroid Stealth Unit. I didn't realize there were new Vehicoroids cards. So, that's our first box, and I think of the cards in here, Infernal Devicer is a very interesting card. Double Evolution Pill and Paleozoic Dynamiscus are the ones that really stood out as immediately useful to us. So the rest will be going into our binder. Okay, second box. Let's just get straight into it. And we have a Stardust Dragon. Okay, that's actually, I think it's standard art, so the Blue Eyes art must already exist on 8 cards somewhere. Yeah, I actually really like Stardust Dragon, so this is a pretty nice one to see. The fact that sets like this exist, which can help you escape the core set model of like getting 1 or 2 just chase cards per box, and that's it. Really feels like a nicer way of going about it, and a nicer way than the way Magic goes about it with their like 18 quid packs or whatever. We have a banned card. Union Carrier. Sai Framelord Omega. That's going to be very helpful. This is a great staple. We have a Terraforming Ultra Rare, which I believe is our highest rarity Terraforming. Firebrand Hymnist. And Synchro Transcend. A duplicate already. Okay, a little surprised to see that, but onwards we go. That pack was actually really great for some staple cards. Both Union Carrier and Omega are actually very good staples. Well, Union Carrier is now banned, but it was good. Awakening of the Possessed. I believe this was in the structured X. That's like our 4th copy. Another duplicate in Y-Strix. Daigusto Emerald, which I think is in... I'm not sure, but I think that might just be in Dual Devastator, so a bit of a weird thing to reprint here. We then have Malefic Selector and Card of Fate, which is some very nice artwork. That's a fun card, but not necessarily particularly good. We have Dingirsu, the Orchest of the Evening Star. Now this is a great card to see, because I think this is still expensive, even though Orchest aren't a meta deck. We have another Omega. A Cubic Causality. A Magical Musketeer Caspar, and a King Dragoon. We have a Madolching Puddingcess Chocolat a la Mode. I think I got that. Herald of Mirage Lights. A Malefic Divide. A What Giraffe. And a DDD Abyss King Gilgamesh. I remember I think just before I stopped playing, different dimension decks were like a pretty good casual deck that were played, and I think someone at our school actually played with them, so nice to see that they're still getting support. We have another Dingirsu. Another number 72, Dreadnought Dreadnoid. A Simorgh, Bird of Sovereignty, which is, don't believe it's directly a floodgate, but it definitely enables one. Bloom Harmonist, the Melodious Composer. And a Phantasm Emperor Trilojig. Wait, 3 level 10s. Wait, it doesn't even destroy, it just half. 3 level 10s for just half one of your opponent's monsters' attack in damage? Okay, that's kind of bad. Like, I'm not sure I'm at the stage of being able to evaluate cards very well, but that one just seems kind of bad. We have YuGiOh, the Absolute Zero Mayakashi, a Cubic Causality, a Magical Musketeer Caspar, another King Dragoon, and a Speedroid Marble Machine. Okay, so our second box was pretty good in terms of some commonly played cards. We got a couple Dingirsus, a couple Sai Framelord Omegas, and yep, Terraforming, the Union Carrier, which is unfortunately banned, but I believe it was banned for a good reason, so we won't complain too much about that. And moving on to the last box. So, still looking for that imperm. And we have a Tour Guide from the Underworld as our Mega Size card. I had thought that by buying 3 boxes of this, I would be incredibly likely to get impermanence before I came across all the other openings and debate going around Reddit, so maybe Chasing a single in packs is a bad idea, but still stand by the fact that there's a lot to bolster our binder from here, so let's carry on. We have a YuGiOh, a cubic causality, a magical musketeer Caspar. I'm pretty sure. Okay, that's a repeat, I believe. Like, I think these cards are in the exact same order they were in another pack, including the cubic causality, which I think I might even have like 4 of. Wait, hang on. Was this whole pack repeated? Oh, wow. Okay. Literally pack to pack, from one box to the other, the entire pack was duplicated. Wow. Why couldn't that have happened with like Hulk Imperm and something else? Okay, that's a bit disconcerting. But I've been seeing it a lot with even other TCGs, like Digimon. There were a few packs that I opened in different starter decks that just had half the commons exactly the same as each other in the same order, so it's clearly manufacturing restraint, probably trying to get the stuff out at speed. We have Artifact Dagda, Daigustu Emerald, Malefic Selector, Card of Fate, and our third Omega. So, unfortunately, I think Omega is only really good up to 1 copy because you just run it for running Gamma and the driver. So, maybe a card we'll make use of, but first we need to actually get some Gammas and a driver. We have a Chaos Dragon Legionnaire, another Terraforming, a Firebrand Hymnist, a Synchro Transcend, and I think our third White Strix. So, seeing a lot of the same cards in these packs, which is a bit weird, but again, that's just the luck when you buy packs. So, and I'm thinking there might be some confirmation bias because I have, like, I had read up some of this stuff before I started opening these, and although 2 packs having the exact same cards in the same order is pretty weird, maybe the fact that I'm pulling 3 of some cards and none of others is just random chance. Starving Venomy Lethal Dose Dragon, Swap Frog, Ferocious Flame Swordsman, Hollow Giants, and a Chaos Goddess. Okay, down to our last 2 packs. So I'm starting to think that I'm going to be going on eBay for a third Impermanence after this, depending on if I do end up wanting to run it over Dark Ruler. We have a Lib, the World Key Blade Master, a Protector Whelp of the Destruction Swordsman, a Super Vicoroid Stealth Union, a number 27 Dreadnought Dreadnoid, and a second Double Evolution Pill, which I think is the only 2 copies I actually need to play Dinos now, so maybe I'll end up just pivoting into that deck. Although I still need that expensive little crocodile thing, I think, so maybe not. Okay, last pack, let's go. We have a Bajinki Akashima, a Cubic Dharma, an Enma's Judgment, a Reptilian Echidna, and a Magic Formula. So, to quote the great Simo, buy singles. Okay, so based on a quick peruse, these are the cards that quickly stood out to me. So, seeing these double evolution pills means I might just crack open the Dino decks and chuck them into that because, yeah, at this point there's not much really stopping me just playing Dinos because most of what you need comes in the structure deck and double evolution pill is the last missing piece of that. A couple Dynamiscus. I don't believe the card's particularly expensive, so when it comes to building the Shadow deck, you can grab a couple of those. Some rarity upgrades on Terraforming. I have plenty of copies of Terraforming, but it's always nice to have shiny ones. Some generic staple cards, Dingesu. Triple Omega is a bit odd, but I don't think I can complain because it's going to be an in-demand card to go with the Omega hand trap package. So, if nothing else, I have an Omega and I can sell 2. Infernal Devicer seems like a pretty sweet card, but I need to check the ruling on what it can add. Like, can I target Vision Hero Trinity and just add 3 heroes to my hand? Because if so, that's kind of insane. Then just a bunch of random links that I grabbed out that look reasonably generic or fit into a wide variety of archetypes like Machine. Legionnaire, specifically a Dragon Link card, but a very good Dragon Link card. And yeah, I think overall, in terms of bolstering our trade binder, the pools were pretty good. I'm gonna basically be just organizing all of this and chucking into the trade binder. The fact that there was no chase cards or whatever is like fine. Like that's the lottery when buying packs, and the fact there was no impermanence is a bit sad, but ultimately, if all I wanted out of this was impermanence, I would have just bought the single. I tested my luck, and I missed a bit, so, happens. Okay, so I just checked the price of this set on TCG Player, and I may have made a miscalculation when considering how much value is actually in the non-chase cards of this set. So, an example is Double Evolution Pill. So, for some context, I order cards off eBay mostly because vendors don't have much stock, and Card Market comes from Europe mostly, which there's problems getting stuff into the UK from Europe. It takes weeks, so eBay is the go-to for me right now. Which means if I were to go and buy a Double Evolution Pill, this card right here, I would end up spending £3 a copy, give or take, on eBay. Less if I bought a whole playset. If I were to go to TCG Player or maybe another player and say, hey, can I buy a Double Evolution Pill off you? I'd be paying 80 cents. Which is basically the case for a lot of cards in this set. This card might be, I don't actually know the price of this one specifically on eBay, but this one card might be £1 on eBay, and it's 50 cents on TCG Player. Legionnaire is one of the ones that actually does hold some reasonable value compared to its eBay price, but that was one card out of everything we pulled. I think it's a similar story for Dynamiscus. They're both like $4 each. So, yeah, there's definitely some improvement I could do with my market research, not relying on just what it would cost me to buy cards to get their values. Because while I definitely plussed in terms of what would it cost me to buy all these cards, or what would I get if I sold all these cards on eBay, in terms of putting them in a binder, they're not actually worth that much. So, yeah. Oops. But the main thing in terms of our league story is that we didn't get the imperm, which means we're going to be still playing blind second next week, and I'm going to shift up the sideboard a bit in a moment to allow us to actually play first a bit better, but we're definitely still playing the blind second plan without a third imperm because now it's too late for me to actually order an imperm in time for the locals. So the plan is play the locals. If we still want to try out the free imperm plan after that, then we change gears and order the imperm. If not, we just keep playing Dark Ruler. Okay, so quickly going over our side deck changes. Still running free Drawn Lockbird for stuff like Dragon Link. Still running free Lancia for stuff like Dinos. Free Ghost Bell for stuff like Zombies. 2 Gamma Seal for dealing with Dragoons. A Red Reboot and a Cosmic Cyclone for dealing with stuff like Eldritch or Shadow Traps. And finally, 2 Impermanents, which is either our going first plan or our copies 4 and 5 of Dark Ruler if our opponent just has one monster that absolutely stops us doing anything at all. So, yeah, I don't think we need many more changes than this. Ultimately, cards like Droll, Lancia, and Ghostbow are seeing play in the meta for a reason, and just learning how to use them better is going to be more valuable than changing to a different card. As for why I chose to remove the Dark Hole and the Raigeki, it's simply because heroes can deal with monsters fine. Like, monster effects are a problem, which is why we have Impermanence and Dark Ruler. But once the board's shut down with Dark Ruler, I mean, we could just punch for it with Trinity if we really need to, or most other heroes, or a worst case scenario, if we really have to, we can just Absolute Zero and Acid to wipe the whole thing out. So I don't really see it as much of a loss losing those 2 cards. I think the only time I've ever brought them in was against Dinos, and all that did was teach me how resilient Dinos are to getting board wiped by destruction effects. So definitely an improvement, I think, in the side deck. As for the main deck, I'm keeping the 2 Cosmic Cyclones in and staying at 42 cards. I said earlier in the episode that I think the Cosmic Cyclone is a dead card in too many matchups, and honestly, I'm not sure that's actually the case. Especially in our little local meta. Hitting stuff like Dragon Maid Tidying, keep knocking out zombie worlds is important, Shoutouts, and even knocking out Lost World, because having a Hero Lives turned off by a token that we can't actually do anything with is super annoying. So yeah, our game plan going forward is just going to be blind second with the Dark Rulers, imperm if we need more copies of Dark Ruler, or if we pivot into going first for the next game, and then just go from there. I'm really hoping that going first with the imperms and to replace the Dark Rulers will help us catch a few opponents off guard, because Heroes is known so well for being a going second OTK deck right now that maybe the pivot to going first will catch some people off guard. Okay, so that wraps up this episode. We're a bit rushed because I had to basically start all of this post-locals, so we've only had a few days, but ultimately I feel a lot more prepared going into next week, and I've still got a few days after this goes up to practice and hopefully learn how to go first, because I really do need to lean on that a bit more. And our side deck changes may have been small, just the impermanences coming in, but I think using those well will actually really allow us to step up our game, in addition to fixing all my misplays with Shadow Mist. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you very much for watching. See you next time.